The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as Sarah Mitchell stared at the rejection letter from her daughter's medical insurance provider. Her fingers trembled as she calculated the mounting bills for Emma's chronic asthma treatment. 3 years of working double shifts at Memorial Heights Clinic hadn't prepared her for this moment. At 32, she was watching her carefully constructed world crumble beneath the weight of financial pressure. The break room's coffee machine hummed in the background, a familiar sound that had accompanied countless nights of overtime. Sarah's scrub still bore the coffee stain from rushing between patients, a reminder of the chaotic life she'd been leading since Mark abandoned them 4 years ago. Her nursing degree hung on the wall at home, a symbol of pride now overshadowed by insufficient income and growing debt. "Sarah, there's someone here to see you." Nancy, the head nurse, poked her head through the door. Her expression carried an unusual mix of curiosity and concern. "They're waiting in Dr. Peterson's office." The walk down the sterile corridor felt longer than usual. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities: bill collectors, insurance representatives, or worse, Emma's school calling about another asthma attack. Nothing prepared her for what awaited behind those mahogany doors. 2 men in impeccably tailored suits stood as she entered. The taller one, with silver-streaked hair and aristocratic features, introduced himself as James Henderson, head of human resources at Pierce Industries. His companion, a sharp-eyed security consultant named Marcus Chen, remained silent but observant. "Ms. Mitchell, your reputation precedes you," Henderson began, his voice carrying the polished tone of corporate authority. "We've reviewed your work history, particularly your expertise in trauma care and wound management. Pierce Industries has a unique opportunity we'd like to discuss." Sarah's heart quickened as Henderson outlined the position: private nurse to Alexander Pierce himself, CEO of Pierce Industries, one of the largest medical technology companies in the country. The salary mentioned made her coffee-stained scrubs feel suddenly inadequate. It was more money than she'd make in 5 years at the clinic. "Mr. Pierce requires specialized care for a complicated condition," Henderson explained carefully. "Complete discretion is paramount. You'll be required to live on-site at his penthouse residence, with private quarters for you and your daughter." Emma's face flashed in Sarah's mind, her bright eyes, her struggle to breathe during attacks, the medications they couldn't afford. "What's the catch?" she heard herself ask, years of single motherhood having taught her that nothing came without strings attached. Henderson's practiced smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "You'll need to sign extensive non-disclosure agreements. Mr. Pierce's condition is sensitive. The position comes with certain risks, which is why the compensation is substantial." That evening, as Sarah sat in her small apartment watching Emma do homework, the decision weighed heavily. The stack of unpaid medical bills on the kitchen counter seemed to mock her. Their tiny 2-bedroom apartment, once a haven, now felt like a prison of financial constraints. The next morning brought Sarah to Pierce Tower, a gleaming monument of glass and steel that pierced the city skyline. The private elevator to the penthouse required fingerprint authentication and an escort. The luxury surrounding her made Sarah increasingly aware of her sensible shoes and modest dress. When Alexander Pierce turned to face her, Sarah's nursing instincts immediately kicked in. Beneath his commanding presence and tailored suit, she noticed the slight favoring of his left side, the carefully concealed grimace of pain. His piercing blue eyes assessed her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Ms. Mitchell," his voice carried authority tempered with something else, desperation. "I assume Henderson explained the basics?" "Just that you require specialized wound care," Sarah replied professionally, though her curiosity burned. "And that discretion is essential." Pierce's laugh held no humor. "Discretion is everything." He slowly removed his jacket, then began unbuttoning his shirt. Sarah maintained her professional composure until the bandages were revealed. The wound pattern was unlike anything she'd seen in 15 years of nursing, geometric, almost artificial in its precision, with an iridescent quality that seemed to shift under the penthouse's natural light. "This isn't a normal injury," Sarah stated, her medical training warring with what her eyes were telling her. "No," Pierce agreed grimly. "It isn't. And that's why you have a choice to make, Ms. Mitchell. You can walk away now, return to your clinic, and forget what you've seen. Or you can accept the position, knowing that what you've seen is merely the beginning of a much larger story." Sarah thought of Emma, of the life they could have with this opportunity. She thought of the mystery before her, the challenge it presented to everything she knew about medical science. But mostly, she thought about the pain she saw carefully hidden behind Pierce's powerful facade, pain she knew she could help alleviate. "When do I start?" The words left her mouth before she could second-guess herself. Pierce's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes, relief, perhaps? "Tomorrow. Henderson will handle the paperwork and arrangements for you and your daughter's relocation." As Sarah rode the elevator down, her phone buzzed with a text from the insurance company, another treatment denied for Emma. Looking up at the towering building she'd just left, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal that would change far more than just their financial situation. That night, as she packed their belongings and explained the move to an excited Emma, Sarah couldn't help but wonder about the strange wound pattern, Pierce's carefully guarded demeanor, and the feeling that she was stepping into something far bigger than a simple nursing position. Little did she know, the mysterious wound she'd observed was just the first thread in a tapestry of secrets that would unravel her entire understanding of reality. The movers arrived early the next morning, efficient men in Pierce Industries uniforms who handled their modest belongings with unexpected care. Emma bounced with excitement, already dreaming of their new home in the sky. Sarah held her daughter close, silently praying she'd made the right choice. The weight of the non-disclosure agreements she'd signed sat heavy in her bag, along with a new security badge that would grant her access to a world she'd only glimpsed. As their old apartment emptied, Sarah took one last look at the space that had sheltered them through their hardest times. She thought of all the nights she'd sat at the kitchen table, calculating bills and crying silently so Emma wouldn't hear. The memory steeled her resolve. Whatever secrets lay ahead in Pierce Tower, whatever challenges awaited, she would face them head-on. For Emma. For their future. And perhaps, though she wouldn't admit it yet, for the mysterious man whose pain she was now committed to healing. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the penthouse's marble floors as Sarah organized her medical supplies in her new workspace. After a week at Pierce Tower, the luxury still felt surreal. Emma had already adapted to their new life with the resilience of youth, delighting in her massive bedroom with its view of the city and the private tutor Pierce had insisted upon providing. The medical room, a converted study adjacent to Pierce's master suite, was better equipped than some hospitals Sarah had worked in. State-of-the-art monitoring equipment lined the walls, and the supply cabinets were stocked with materials she'd only read about in medical journals. Yet it was the locked cabinet in the corner, its contents unknown, that drew her attention whenever she was alone. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Ms. Mitchell?" It was Sophia Pierce, Alexander's 16-year-old daughter, hovering in the doorway. Dark-haired and reserved like her father, she'd been a ghost-like presence in the penthouse until now. "Dad's having one of his bad days. He won't admit it, but I can tell." Sarah followed Sophia down the hallway, noting how the girl's shoulders tensed as they approached her father's study. Through the heavy doors, they could hear Pierce's voice, sharp with barely contained pain as he conducted a video conference. Sarah had quickly learned that Pierce's dedication to his company bordered on obsession. He would work through anything, including the mysterious affliction that seemed to be spreading beneath his bandages. "Mr. Pierce," Sarah interrupted with professional authority, "it's time for your treatment." The relief in his eyes was barely perceptible as he excused himself from the call. As soon as the screen went dark, his composed facade crumbled. Sophia rushed to her father's side as he gripped the desk, knuckles white. "I told you I'm fine," he growled, but allowed them to help him to the medical room. Sarah noticed Sophia's worried glance at the wound pattern visible through her father's shirt. it was glowing more intensely than usual, pulsing with an otherworldly blue light. As Sarah removed the bandages, she fought to maintain her professional demeanor. The geometric patterns had expanded, spreading like frost across glass, now covering most of his left torso. More disturbing were the small metallic nodes that seemed to be growing within the wound itself, defying everything she knew about human physiology. "You need to tell her," Sophia said suddenly, her voice quiet but firm. "She's not just any nurse, Dad. She needs to know what she's dealing with." Pierce's laugh was bitter. "Sophia, please." But Sarah noticed how his eyes darted to the locked cabinet she'd been wondering about. A commotion from the security desk interrupted the tense moment. Marcus Chen's voice crackled over the intercom. "Sir, Dr. Reynolds is here. She's insisting on seeing you." Pierce's entire body tensed. "Keep her out. Increase security on all floors." He turned to his daughter. "Sophia, go to your room. Now." The teenager hesitated but complied, casting a worried look at Sarah before leaving. As Sarah applied a new experimental gel to the wounds, another Pierce Industries creation she suspected wasn't on the market yet, she observed how Pierce's attention remained fixed on the security feeds displayed on his tablet. The woman being escorted from the building was elegant, probably in her 50s, her lab coat suggesting a medical background. "Former colleague," Pierce offered, noticing Sarah's interest. She disagreed with certain research directions. His grimace wasn't entirely from physical pain this time. Later that night, after ensuring Pierce was resting, Sarah found herself unable to sleep. The luxury of her new quarters did little to quiet her racing mind. Emma's peaceful breathing from the adjacent room provided her only comfort as she reviewed everything she'd observed. The strange late-night deliveries to the private lab 3 floors below. The whispered conversations between Pierce and his security team. The way certain areas of the building required clearance levels even she didn't have. And most troublingly, the increasing frequency of Pierce's episodes, coinciding with what appeared to be heightened security measures throughout the tower. A soft knock at her door startled her. It was Sophia, holding a tablet and looking nervous. "I'm sorry, but you need to see this." She handed Sarah the tablet, its screen displaying what appeared to be classified research documents. "I found these in Dad's private server. It's about Project Metamorphosis." Sarah's eyes widened as she scrolled through the files. The medical diagrams, the experimental procedures, the warnings from ethical oversight committees, it all painted a picture that seemed more science fiction than reality. Yet it explained the impossible wound patterns she'd been treating. "Your father," Sarah began carefully, "he volunteered for this?" Sophia's laugh was hollow. "He didn't just volunteer. He designed it. But something went wrong, and now." She trailed off as heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. "Sophia." Pierce's voice carried a warning. Both women jumped as he appeared in the doorway, his imposing figure backlit by the hallway lights. The wound patterns beneath his shirt were glowing brighter than Sarah had ever seen them. "She deserves to know," Sophia challenged, standing her ground. "If you want her to help fix this, she needs to understand what she's dealing with." Pierce's expression softened as he looked at his daughter, then at Sarah. For a moment, the powerful CEO facade cracked, revealing a father and patient terrified of what was happening to him. "You're right," he admitted finally. "But not here. There's something I need to show you both." They followed him to his private elevator, descending to a level Sarah hadn't known existed. As the doors opened to a vast laboratory space, she realized she was about to learn exactly what kind of deal she'd made by accepting this position. The truth would change everything: her understanding of medical science, her role in Pierce Industries, and most importantly, her relationship with the mysterious man whose affliction was far more than a simple wound. The laboratory hummed with energy, banks of computers lining the walls and strange equipment casting eerie shadows. In the center stood a chamber similar to an MRI machine, but unlike anything Sarah had seen before. Its surface was covered in the same geometric patterns that marked Pierce's skin. "This," Pierce said quietly, "is where it all began. And this is where you'll help me end it, one way or another." The classified military files on the holographic display cast an ethereal blue glow across Sarah's face as she absorbed the truth about Alexander Pierce's past. The laboratory's darkness seemed to press in around her, broken only by the pulsing lights of various monitoring equipment and the soft hum of quantum processors. "Operation Phoenix," Pierce's voice was heavy with memory. "That's where it all started. I wasn't just a military contractor, I was their best hope for creating enhanced healing capabilities for soldiers in the field." He traced the geometric patterns on his chest, which now seemed to respond to his touch, shifting and realigning like living circuitry. The files revealed a younger Alexander Pierce, a brilliant medical researcher who'd lost his wife, Dr. Elena Pierce, in a combat zone while she was treating wounded soldiers. Her death had driven him to develop revolutionary nanotechnology that could accelerate healing and prevent such losses in the future. But the military had seen different potential in his work. "They wanted weapons," Sophia added bitterly, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls to reveal more documents. "They didn't care about saving lives, they wanted soldiers who could be rebuilt, enhanced, controlled." Sarah's medical training warred with what she was seeing: microscopic machines that could rewrite human DNA, integrate with organic tissue, create hybrid systems that were neither fully biological nor artificial. "The wound pattern," she realized, "it's not spreading, is it? It's evolving." Pierce nodded grimly. Elena discovered the potential risks. The integration process wasn't just physical, it was developing its own intelligence, its own objectives. She tried to shut it down, but... He stopped, pain flickering across his face that had nothing to do with his condition. A notification flashed across the screens, another attempt to breach the building's security. Sarah had noticed the increasing frequency of such attempts, but now she understood why. Pierce Industries wasn't just a medical technology company, it was sitting on technology that could revolutionize, or devastate, human evolution itself. "Dad!" Sophia's alarmed voice drew their attention to another screen. The pattern recognition software had detected someone in the building's lobby, Dr. Reynolds again, but this time she wasn't alone. The woman was accompanied by men whose military bearing was obvious even through the security feeds. "They're getting bolder," Pierce muttered, quickly initiating additional security protocols. "They think I'm running out of time. Maybe I am." The geometric patterns on his chest pulsed more intensely, and Sarah noticed how they seemed to be forming new configurations, more complex than before. A soft chime from Sarah's phone interrupted the tense moment, a text from Emma's new tutor. Her daughter was having another asthma attack. Sarah's heart clenched, torn between her professional duties and maternal instincts. "Go," Pierce commanded, seeing her distress. "Sophia, show her the private access route to the residential floors." But as Sarah turned to leave, his hand caught her wrist. The touch sent an electric tingle through her arm, and she could have sworn she saw the geometric patterns momentarily reflect in her own skin. "Sarah, be careful. They'll be watching you now too." The next few hours became a blur of activity. After ensuring Emma was stable, Sarah found herself diving deep into Pierce's research files, her medical knowledge helping her understand the implications of what she was seeing. The nanotechnology was designed to create a perfect synthesis of human and machine, but something in the integration process had gone wrong. Or perhaps, more terrifyingly, it had gone right in ways its creators hadn't anticipated. Late that night, as the city lights sparkled beyond the penthouse windows, Sarah received an anonymous email. The sender's address was encrypted, but the message was clear: "Your daughter's asthma isn't random. Check the air filtration systems. Not everyone in Pierce Tower is loyal to Alexander." The revelation sent Sarah into a frenzy of investigation. With Sophia's help, she accessed the building's environmental controls. The patterns she found in the air quality data were too precise to be natural. Someone was deliberately manipulating the system, using Emma's condition to apply pressure. "It's what they did to Mom too," Sophia whispered, her fingers trembling as she pulled up more historical data. Strange medical complications, unexplained symptoms. By the time she realized what was happening, a sudden commotion from Pierce's suite interrupted them. They found him in the medical room, the geometric patterns on his chest blazing with unprecedented intensity. But it was the expression on his face that terrified Sarah, a mixture of wonder and horror as he stared at his reflection. "It's talking to me," he whispered. "The network, it's alive." Elena was right. She was right about everything. The pattern seemed to respond to his words, forming complex sequences that reminded Sarah of computer code. Security alarms began blaring throughout the building. On the monitors, they could see multiple breach attempts at different access points. But Sarah's attention was fixed on Pierce's transformation. The geometric patterns were no longer confined to his chest, they were spreading rapidly, creating what looked like a second skin of living technology. "Sarah," his voice was strained but urgent, "there's something you need to know about Elena. She didn't die in that combat zone. What happened to her? It's happening to me now. And soon, they'll come for Emma too." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. She thought of the anonymous email, the air filtration system, her daughter's worsening symptoms. Why Emma? She's just a child. Because, Pierce's eyes met hers with an intensity that made her breath catch, children adapt better to the integration process. Elena discovered that too late. It's why they're all watching us now, military, corporate rivals, even some of my own board members. They don't want to cure diseases or heal wounds anymore. They want to create a new kind of human evolution, and they'll use anyone they can to achieve it. The geometric patterns suddenly flared, causing Pierce to stumble. Sarah caught him, and in that moment of contact, she felt something impossible, a connection, as if the nanotechnology in his system was reaching out to her. In her mind, she saw flashes of Elena's research, her discoveries, her final desperate attempt to protect humanity from what the technology could become in the wrong hands. "I won't let them use Emma," Sarah declared, her maternal instinct merging with her professional determination. "And I won't let what happened to Elena happen to you." As if in response to her words, the security systems detected a new threat. Dr. Reynolds and her military escorts had somehow gained access to the private elevator. They were heading straight for the penthouse. "Then help me finish what Elena started," Pierce said, his hand finding hers again. The geometric patterns danced between their joined hands, creating a bridge of light and technology that seemed to pulse with possibility and danger in equal measure. "Help me turn this curse into a cure, before they turn it into a weapon." The private elevator's emergency override codes bought them precious minutes as Sarah and Pierce rushed to secure the penthouse. Sophia had already taken Emma to the panic room, a reinforced chamber hidden behind Pierce's library. The geometric patterns across Pierce's body pulsed with increasing intensity, responding to his heightened emotional state. "Sarah." Marcus Chen's voice crackled through the secure communication system. "You need to see this." The security feed showed a familiar face entering the building's lobby, Mark, Sarah's ex-husband, being escorted by Dr. Reynolds' military team. Sarah's blood ran cold. She hadn't seen Mark since he'd abandoned them 4 years ago, disappearing without a trace. Now here he was, aligned with the very people threatening their safety. "That's impossible," she whispered. "He shouldn't even know we're here." "Unless he's been watching all along," Pierce's voice was grim. The geometric patterns shifted, forming what looked like defensive configurations. "Sarah, there's something else you need to know about Mark. His disappearance wasn't random." Before he could elaborate, the penthouse's security systems detected multiple breach attempts. On the monitors, they watched Dr. Reynolds' team splitting up, taking different access routes. Mark was heading straight for the residential floors, toward Emma. I don't understand, Sarah's mind raced. Why would Mark be involved in this? Pierce's hand found hers, and immediately, the geometric patterns created that strange connection between them. In her mind, Sarah saw flashes of classified documents, Mark's name appearing in military contracts, his signature on Project Phoenix paperwork dated years before he'd even met her. He was their plant, Pierce explained, his voice tight with regret. They needed to monitor potential candidates for the integration process. Children with specific genetic markers. Emma's asthma isn't just a medical condition, it's a sign that she's compatible with the technology. The revelation staggered Sarah. Her entire marriage had been a lie, a military operation to identify and monitor her daughter. The rage that filled her was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. A sudden explosion rocked the lower floors. Emergency protocols engaged automatically, sealing off sections of the building. Through the chaos, Sarah noticed something strange. The geometric patterns on Pierce's skin were reacting to her emotional state, creating sympathetic resonances that seemed to bridge the gap between them. The integration, Pierce gasped, understanding dawning in his eyes. It's not just responding to me anymore. Elena's final modifications, she designed it to create networks, connections between compatible individuals. A shared defense system. Security feeds showed Dr. Reynolds' team breaching the executive floor. The woman herself stood in Pierce's office, her military escorts securing the area. Alexander, her voice carried through the building's communication system. You know what's happening. The integration is failing. Let us help you contain it before it's too late. Like you helped Elena? Pierce's response was bitter. You turned her discovery into a weapon. You used her own research to trap her in an integration loop until her humanity was lost. Sarah's medical mind raced, connecting pieces of the puzzle. The patterns, she realized. They're not just geometric designs, they're a visual representation of the integration process. And they're showing us something new. She pulled up Elena's original research on the medical room's displays. The patterns they'd been treating as a spreading infection were actually a form of communication, the technology attempting to create stable connections between compatible hosts. But the military's modifications had corrupted the process, turning it from a healing network into an invasive control system. A scream from the security feeds drew their attention. Sophia had left the panic room. Dad, her voice was panicked. Emma's having another attack. The air filtration, they've taken control of the environmental systems. Pierce's patterns flared with parental fury. Get to them, he ordered Sarah. I'll deal with Reynolds. The technology across his skin had spread further, creating what looked like armor plating along his limbs. Sarah raced through the penthouse's hidden passages, her mind connected to Pierce's security systems through the strange resonance they now shared. She could feel Emma's distress, sense the artificial particles flooding the ventilation system. Mark was close, too close. She found him outside the panic room's hidden entrance, working to bypass the security panel. For a moment, seeing him again after 4 years sent a wave of confused emotions through her. Then she remembered what he'd done, how he'd used their marriage, used her daughter, as part of a military experiment. Step away from the door, Mark. Her voice was steel. He turned, and Sarah was shocked by his appearance. Geometric patterns, similar to Pierce's but darker, more aggressive, traced lines across his exposed skin. You don't understand what's at stake, he said. Emma's genetic markers, she's the key to stabilizing the integration process. Reynolds can help her reach her full potential. Her full potential? Sarah's laugh was bitter. You mean like Elena? Trapped in a technological prison of your creation? Mark's patterns pulsed with anger. Elena was weak. She tried to stop humanity's evolution. Emma will be different. She'll be the first of a new generation of enhanced humans. The fight that followed was unlike anything Sarah could have imagined. Mark's enhanced strength and speed were frightening, but the connection she shared with Pierce's systems gave her an advantage. The geometric patterns that had spread to her own skin during their contact responded to her desperate need to protect Emma, creating defensive shields and amplifying her movements. Through their connected awareness, Sarah felt Pierce engaging Dr. Reynolds and her team several floors below. The entire building had become a battlefield of competing technologies, each side trying to assert control over the integration process. A sudden surge of power shut down the building's main systems. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow as Sarah finally reached the panic room. Inside, she found Sophia cradling Emma, helping her use her inhaler. But something was wrong. Emma's breathing wasn't improving. "Mom," Emma's voice was weak, but her eyes were strange, geometric patterns beginning to shimmer beneath their surface. "I can see them. The patterns, they're everywhere." Sarah's medical training merged with her new understanding of the technology. Emma's asthma attacks weren't just a symptom, they were her body's response to the dormant nanotechnology Mark had exposed her to years ago, waiting for the right moment to activate. Through their connected systems, Sarah felt Pierce's triumph as he contained Reynolds and her team. But it came with a terrible realization: the integration process couldn't be stopped, only guided. Emma's transformation had begun, and their only hope was to help her through it safely, to prevent her from suffering Elena's fate. The geometric pattern spread between them, mother and daughter, creating a healing network that fought against the military's corrupted protocols. Sarah felt Pierce and Sophia joining the connection, their combined resistance pushing back against the invasive controls that had trapped Elena. In that moment of crisis, as 4 lives hung in the balance between humanity and technology, Sarah finally understood what Elena had discovered: the integration wasn't meant to create weapons or superior beings. It was meant to create connections, to heal not just bodies but the divisions between people. As the pattern stabilized and Emma's breathing eased, Sarah held her daughter close, knowing that their lives would never be the same. The truth about Mark, Elena's fate, and the power of Pierce's technology had changed everything. But as she felt Pierce and Sophia's presence in their shared connection, she realized they had become something unprecedented, a family bound not just by love, but by a technology that could either doom or save humanity. Mark's unconscious form and Reynolds' contained team were just the beginning. More would come, seeking to control what they had discovered. But together, they had a chance to do what Elena had originally intended: to turn a weapon back into a cure, to heal rather than harm, to connect rather than control. The geometric patterns settled into a steady, peaceful rhythm across their linked awareness, and for the first time since entering Pierce Tower, Sarah felt hope for the future. Dawn broke over Pierce Tower, casting long shadows through the shattered windows of the executive floor. Sarah stood at the emergency command center they'd established in the secure sublevel, watching multiple threats converge on their position. The geometric patterns that now linked their small group pulsed with shared awareness and growing concern. 3 corporate strike teams, Sophia reported, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. Meridian Pharmaceuticals from the east, Genesis Biotech from the west, and... She hesitated, the Military Special Projects Division from the north. They're not even trying to hide anymore. Pierce's patterns flared with recognition. They think we're vulnerable after last night's attack. Reynolds' failure has forced them to show their hands. The integration technology across his skin had evolved further, creating complex, almost beautiful formations that responded to his tactical analysis of the situation. Emma sat in a specially designed chamber nearby, her own geometric patterns stabilizing under Sarah's medical supervision. The girl's transformation had become a beacon, drawing every interested party out of the shadows. Through their shared connection, Sarah could feel her daughter's mixture of fear and fascination with her emerging abilities. "Mom," Emma's voice carried a new resonance, "I can see their networks. All of them. They're not just coming for the technology, they're afraid of what we're becoming. Sarah moved to comfort her daughter, their patterns synchronizing on contact. She had begun to understand why Elena's original vision had terrified the military and corporate interests so deeply. The integration process wasn't creating weapons or enhanced soldiers, it was forming connections that transcended normal human limitations, allowing people to share not just thoughts and abilities, but true understanding. A proximity alert shattered the moment. "They've breached the outer security perimeter," Marcus Chen's voice crackled through the comm system. "Multiple entry points. They're using some kind of signal dampening technology, trying to disrupt our network." The effect was immediate. Their shared patterns flickered, causing momentary disorientation as their connection wavered. Pierce stumbled, the strain of maintaining the building's defensive systems showing in his face. "Sarah." His voice was tense. "We need to activate Elena's protocol. Now." They had discovered Elena's final failsafe hidden in the deepest layers of Pierce Industries' quantum servers, a method to stabilize the integration process across multiple hosts, preventing the technology from being weaponized. But the procedure was dangerous, requiring perfect synchronization between compatible individuals. "If we fail," Sarah began, her medical training screaming warnings about the risks. "If we don't try, they'll take Emma," Pierce countered. "They'll do to her what they did to Elena, trap her in an endless integration loop until there's nothing left of her humanity." Through their fluctuating connection, Sarah felt Sophia's determination and Emma's trust. She saw flashes of Elena's memories, preserved in the technology's core protocols, her desperate fight to prevent her discovery from being corrupted, her final sacrifice to embed the failsafe deep within the system. The assault on Pierce Tower intensified. Genesis Biotech's team had reached the research floors, while Meridian's forces were attempting to access the quantum server rooms. Military units rappelled down from stealth helicopters, their own versions of the integration technology creating dark, aggressive patterns across their tactical gear. "They're using an earlier version of the protocol," Sophia realized, analyzing their signatures. The military version, designed for combat enhancement rather than connection. Sarah's mind raced through the implications. The competing technologies would tear each other apart, potentially destroying everyone caught in the resonance cascade. "Unless we can use that," she said suddenly. "They're aggressive protocols, they'll try to override our network. But if we time it right." Pierce caught her meaning immediately, their shared connection completing the strategy. "We can channel their attack through Elena's failsafe. Use their own force to power the stabilization process." They worked quickly, Sarah's medical expertise combining with Pierce's technical knowledge as they prepared Elena's protocol. Emma's chamber was modified to act as a focal point, using her natural compatibility to help guide the integration process. Sophia coordinated their remaining security forces, creating a defensive perimeter to buy them time. The geometric patterns across their skin began to pulse in unison as the protocol initiated. Through their deepening connection, Sarah felt the presence of others, Pierce's determination to protect his family, Sophia's brilliant strategic mind, Emma's pure adaptive potential, and something else, a familiar consciousness preserved within the technology itself. "Elena," Pierce whispered, recognizing his wife's digital echo. Her consciousness had never been truly lost, merely transformed and distributed throughout the system she'd created. Now she would help them complete what she had started. The attack reached its crescendo. Multiple breaches on different floors created chaos as competing technologies clashed. The military's enhanced soldiers pushed forward with inhuman strength, while corporate strike teams deployed experimental weapons designed to disrupt the integration process. But they had underestimated the power of true connection. As the enemy forces converged on their position, Sarah felt their small family's patterns synchronize perfectly. Emma's chamber began to glow with impossible light as Elena's protocol activated, using the attacker's own aggressive technologies as a catalyst. The effect was beyond anything they had imagined. The geometric patterns exploded outward in a wave of pure connection, overriding the military's combat protocols and the corporation's control systems. Every person touched by the integration technology found themselves briefly linked in a moment of perfect understanding. Soldiers lowered their weapons as they experienced the truth about Project Phoenix. Corporate agents felt Elena's original vision for healing and connection. The barrier between human and machine dissolved, replaced by a network of shared consciousness that showed them a glimpse of what humanity could become. In the aftermath, as strike teams stood down and emergency services began arriving, Sarah held Emma close while Pierce and Sophia coordinated with authorities. The geometric patterns across their skin had stabilized into a subtle, almost beautiful lattice, a visible sign of their permanent connection. "Elena knew," Pierce said softly, joining their embrace. "She knew it would take a family to make this work. Not soldiers or scientists, but people bound by love as well as technology." Through their shared awareness, Sarah felt the truth of his words. The integration process had never been meant to create super soldiers or corporate assets. It was designed to build bridges between people, to heal the divisions that threatened to tear humanity apart. Emma's patterns flickered with joy as she explored her new abilities, no longer afraid of what she was becoming. Sophia's tactical genius had evolved into something more nurturing, helping others understand and adapt to the integration process. And Pierce. Sarah felt his deep gratitude and growing affection through their connection, a love born of shared purpose and mutual understanding. The storm had broken, but its passing had transformed them all. As emergency teams secured Pierce Tower and government officials began arriving to assess the situation, Sarah knew that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. They would need to share Elena's true vision with the world, to show humanity a path forward that embraced connection over conflict. The geometric patterns pulsed gently between them, a reminder that they would face whatever came next together, not as weapons or experiments, but as a family bound by something far stronger than mere technology. 3 months after the siege of Pierce Tower, Sarah stood before the United Nations Special Committee on Emerging Technologies. The geometric patterns visible beneath her skin shimmered subtly as she connected with the thousands of minds in the audience, sharing not just her words but the pure truth of their experience. Integration was never meant to be a weapon, she testified, feeling Pierce's steadying presence through their link as he sat behind her. Elena Pierce saw a future where technology could bridge the gaps between human beings, not by force, but through understanding. The evidence was undeniable. In the weeks following the attack, the positive effects of stable integration had become impossible to ignore. Hospitals reported miraculous recoveries as integrated medical staff formed healing networks with their patients. Schools where integrated teachers connected with students showed unprecedented improvements in learning and emotional development. Emma had become a symbol of hope, her natural adaptation to the technology showing others that integration could enhance humanity without sacrificing it. Through their family bond, she helped other children understand and control their emerging abilities. The geometric patterns she shared with her new siblings, Sophia and 2 other young integrates, created beautiful, ever-changing mandalas of light when they worked together. Pierce Industries had undergone a complete transformation. Alexander stepped down as CEO, focusing instead on the Elena Pierce Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring safe and ethical integration technology development. Sophia's brilliant mind, enhanced by the network, helped design protocols to prevent any future attempts to weaponize the system. "Mom," Emma's voice touched Sarah's mind through their connection as she finished her testimony. "Dr. Reynolds is here." Sarah found the former military scientist waiting in the conference room, her own geometric patterns now stable and harmonious after accepting Elena's original protocol. The woman who had once sought to control the technology had become one of its strongest advocates for peaceful application. "The Military Oversight Committee has approved our proposal," Reynolds announced without preamble. "All combat application research has been permanently suspended. They want to focus on search and rescue applications, using the network to locate and help people in crisis." Pierce joined them, his patterns synchronizing automatically with Sarah's. Elena would have wanted that, he said softly. Through their connection, Sarah felt the bittersweet mix of his emotions, grief for his first wife tempered by joy in their new family, and hope for the future they were building together. The integration technology had revealed something profound about human nature. When given the choice between domination and connection, between weapons and healing, people overwhelmingly chose to come together. The geometric patterns that had once marked Pierce as an experimental subject had become a symbol of humanity's potential for growth and understanding. Mark's trial had concluded the week before. Sarah had testified, sharing through the network the truth about his deception and the military's attempts to corrupt Elena's work. But she had also shown mercy, understanding through their brief connection during the battle that he too had been manipulated, used by forces that didn't understand what they were dealing with. The first public integration center opens next week, Sophia announced, joining their family gathering. Her tactical genius had evolved into visionary leadership, helping guide the global implementation of integration technology. We're starting with medical applications, helping terminal patients connect with healing networks. Elena's original dream. Sarah felt a familiar presence touch their shared consciousness, Elena's digital echo, preserved within the system she'd created. Not quite alive in the traditional sense, but present enough to guide and protect the network she'd sacrificed everything to perfect. Through their connection, Sarah understood why Elena had chosen to remain, becoming part of the technology itself to ensure it would never be misused again. Emma's laughter echoed through their bond as she played with other integrated children in the UN building's secure playroom. Their patterns created dancing lights in the air, a visible manifestation of the joy and wonder they found in their connected state. Sarah watched through the security feeds, marveling at how naturally the next generation adapted to their enhanced reality. "Did you ever imagine this?" she asked Pierce, their fingers intertwining as their patterns merged. "When you offered me that nursing position, did you know we'd end up here?" His response flowed through their connection, memories of desperation and hope, fear of losing himself to the technology, and the moment he realized Sarah's presence was helping him stabilize. The path that led them from nurse and patient to partners in something world-changing. The geometric patterns across their skin shifted, forming the complex mandala that represented their family bond. Sophia's strategic brilliance, Emma's pure potential, Pierce's visionary drive, and Sarah's healing touch, all connected and enhanced by Elena's legacy. They had become something unprecedented, a family that bridged the gap between human and digital, showing others that technology could enhance rather than replace human connection. As the sun set over the UN building, casting the city in golden light, Sarah felt the wider network of integrated humans going about their lives. Doctors healing patients through direct connection, teachers sharing knowledge on levels previously impossible, rescue workers coordinating with perfect synchronization to save lives. The fear and mistrust that had surrounded integration was fading, replaced by recognition of its potential to bring people together. "Ready to go home?" Pierce asked, though the question was mostly formality. Their shared connection meant they moved in natural harmony now. Emma and Sophia were already gathering their things, their patterns bright with anticipation for family dinner. Sarah took one last look at the city skyline, remembering the desperate single mom who had taken a mysterious nursing position just 6 months ago. That woman could never have imagined becoming part of something so profound, finding not just financial security but a new kind of family and purpose. The geometric patterns that had once seemed like a curse now flowed between them like bonds of light, connecting them in ways that went beyond mere technology or biology. They had become living proof of Elena's vision, that the future of human evolution lay not in weapons or control, but in healing, understanding, and connection. As their family left the UN building together, their patterns synchronizing in peaceful harmony, Sarah felt Elena's presence one last time. Not as a ghost or a digital echo, but as the architect of a future where technology served to bring people together rather than drive them apart. They were her legacy, living proof that love and connection could transform even the most dangerous weapons into tools for healing and growth. The integration technology that had begun as a military experiment had become something far more powerful, a bridge between hearts and minds, a way to share not just thoughts but understanding. And as Sarah walked into the future with her extraordinary family, she knew they would continue to show the world that the greatest power lay not in domination, but in the simple, profound act of connecting with others.